Jason, I mentioned I watched your video on YouTube of your song Constant. I know the story, but as I watched it, it just brought tears to my eyes. It's about a 15-year-old girl, and tell me about her.
Yeah, so my mom at 15 was assaulted walking home from the pool one day. Didn't remember it. Months went on. My grandma was chasing around 4 other kids, and she always said, "Your mom was my good kid," and she said, "I completely missed it." And I remember as a young kid, I'm sure I was asking at the time, like, well, hey, how come I don't have a dad? I don't really know how all it happened, but I remember my grandma setting me down and telling me what happened. And I'm sure I didn't understand the situation at the time, but I remember trying to process, like, well, how do you not remember something so traumatic? And I've had plenty of people tell me that when something traumatic like that happens, your mind can block it out. And so my mom just didn't remember it. And months went on, she was gaining weight. She would tell you she was very naive for 15. She didn't understand anything about babies. And she told my grandma one day, "I'm sick, I need to go to the doctor." And my grandma said, well, she's gained weight. She had noticed that. She said, let's take her to the doctor and see what the doctor says. And so they did. And the doctor came out and said, well, she's pregnant. And after the initial shock wore off, the best way I know to explain it to people is I had a praying mama who said, we're going to go to church and we're going to pray. And that's what they did. And if you were to have heard her tell the story, she made it sound so simple. But I understand that it couldn't have been that easy. But I always tell people my grandma very much understood how big God is. And she believed that He is so big that He was not surprised by me. And these things that we read in the Bible, that He formed me in my mother's womb, that He had plans for me, she believed it with all of her heart. And so for her and her 15-year-old daughter, they had some choices that they had to make. And I always just tell people, I'm just thankful they chose life. And so...
How far along was she?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know, actually. I think it was several months. I mean, I was kicking. That's what scared her, because she didn't know what was happening. You can imagine. I mean, it sounds like a funny, scary movie out of the 80s, but the next thing was adoption was the plan. I mean, that's kind of where it went from there. And then when my mom heard my heartbeat, she said, no, I want to keep this baby. And I always tell people I know that my 15-year-old mama had no idea what she was getting into. But my grandma did, and she said, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's what we're going to do. And so my mom had me turn 16 a couple months later, so she is 16 years older than I am, and went on about life as normal as life could be. And I tell people that they made it clear to me at a young age that, you know what, you don't have a dad, we don't even know who it is, but you have a heavenly Father who loves you more than you'll ever know. And the song Constant just became so perfect because my grandma very much understood that God is constant and He does not change. And even in your deepest, darkest valley, even on your highest mountaintop, He's the same. And when you understand that, it becomes so much easier to say, God, you're so great, and you're great either way. And that's some of the lines of the song.
It's powerful. How's your mom doing now?
She's good. She wears reading glasses now, which is weird because I remember my mom as a teenager, when you're little kids, people always ask, like, well, how old's your mom? How old's your dad? And I remember telling people, like, well, my mom's 21, I remember those conversations. She actually came to see us play a few weeks ago. We were close to home, and I always share my story everywhere I go because I promised the Lord I would do that, and I have. And the pastor had her stand up and made a big to-do that she was there, and so that was nice. But she's good.
Did you ever question growing up, maybe in the teenage years, or wonder or get angry about it?
I never did, and I know that is from the Lord. But I just tell people I was so loved that I just didn't miss having a dad. And I think that just covers a lot of things. And when the love is so great that it can do that. And so I just didn't miss it. But my mom was great. I mean, she did, she was very athletic growing up. So she coached my basketball team one year. I mean, she always did cool things like that, And then my grandpa was amazing. And I ended up getting to live with my grandparents all through high school. because my mom got a job offer far away and I really didn't want to move away from my grandparents, and she let me live with my grandparents all through high school. And so I got to live with them and have that parental unit, you know, the sense of normalcy, I guess, all through high school. And I believe the Lord just worked that out as well, because it was perfect for me.
Has there ever been a story or somebody that came up to you and said, "You've changed my life because of your story"?
Oh, I've got a million of them. The one that would stand out would be one of the very first times. We used to go to these camps all the time, and we were in front of this camp. My wife was there because she's a teacher, so she would go work all summer at the camps with us, and we used to do that every summer. In her Bible study, she said, "Hey, I have a girl. She's 16 years old. She has an 8-month-old baby. And I think you need to talk to her," because I was about to share my story the next day in front of the whole camp, hundreds of kids. She said, "Maybe you should talk to her first and just let her hear before I say it in front of everybody." And so we worked it out. Her youth leaders let me sit down and talk to her. And I found out my story and my mom's story and her story were almost parallel, like very much the same, right? She didn't know who the dad was. Her parents were helping her raise the baby. And I saw in that moment, all that little girl needed to know was there was somebody else in this world who had been through exactly what she was going through and made it. That's all she needed. And I could just see the burdens lifted off of her and so she started asking me questions. And then she would ask me questions that I later got to relay back and forth from my mom and my grandma to her mom. And it was amazing. And there's a million of those, but that's the one that continues to stand out after all these years. And she later went on to get married and have a bunch more babies and live happily ever after. And we got to watch that happen, which was so cool. But yeah, just things like that. I hear stories every week like that.